I warned him.
We're getting used to different town meeting requirements, but I'm recommending to the board that the assistant superintendent's salary be increased by 2% as presented.
I move that we, consistent with section 7C of the contract, approve the recommendation of the superintendent to increase assistant superintendent Kevin Flynn salary 18 salary by 2% as presented.
Second.
A comment.
Yes. My town administrator and select board have great praise for Mr. Maloney as well.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, over to the vote. All in favor of the motion on the table, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to give the board an update on the evolution of our academy model, and as one indicator of that, earlier in the spring, I asked staff to submit proposals for summer work. We've done this over the last few years, but this year we were very specific in regards to the requirements for the proposal were that it had to relate to the academy model, it had to relate to school goals. And the executive team and I were a little bit overwhelmed. There were requests totaling $66,000, and we told everybody we only had $30,000 to work with. I believe there were 20 proposals, and we ended up approving 12. And that 12 proposals correlates to over 30 staff that are in the building this summer working on curriculum mapping, working on the senior project and portfolio, our new Children's Colonial Academy, a new daycare center, peer mentoring projects, evaluation of student proficiency in targeted languages, some work on our continuing professional development when it comes to recognizing the signs of suicide, our executive functioning project, senior project videos, an online school store, integrated math projects. I was very, very pleased to see literally a third of the staff have successful proposals. If I had funded all of the proposals, we would have had more than half the staff working all summer. But the fact that they wanted to do that tells me anyway, moving in the right direction.
Is that your okay with the academy model?
It is, sir.
Great.
Ford?
That just explains something, because I came into the school today, which I happened to drop in every once in a while. I saw the faculty, and I said, where are the students? You know, we have your staff is all over the place. And, I didn't see students, so I think we need to have them here for those.
So I actually do have a comment on their work in the academy model. And I'm saying this as a public school teacher, because there are some aspects of what they're doing that I understand really well. And I want everybody here to appreciate how extraordinary what's going on here. So as a public school teacher in a traditional school, we are subject to all sorts of proposals that come through that we have to comply with. Some come from the federal government, some come from the state, some may come from the city, some may be an idea of the superintendent or the principal. And a lot of these ideas require the teachers to do a whole bunch of work, and they get us all hepped up with a lot of work. And it's often a document with a lot of buzzwords in it because somebody had some idea somewhere that they're implementing. And we go, oh my God, not again. And so we have at our professional development seminars or our teacher meetings, we spend hours and hours doing all sorts of work. And then what inevitably happens, most of the time, is that we either run out of money for the grant, or we're on to something else, and all the work is gone, and we didn't think that the idea had that much merit to begin with. And it's very frustrating for a public school teacher to deal with that again and again and again. It happens every year. What they're doing here is something which we don't see very often and is quite extraordinary. It's an idea, in this case, the Academy model, which has support from all aspects of the organization. And when they first brought up Academy model, I said, okay, is this going to be another buzzword thing that just comes in and comes out? I don't know. We'll wait and see. And the first thing that caught my attention was that their superintendent gave the teachers an enormous amount of planning time to work on this idea, and also sent them to conferences. And that alone, to have teachers get planning time to do something in that extent, right away is very unusual. We're always asking for it. Say, you want us to do this, we need planning time. No, you can do it whatever time you want. And then, first of all, the idea itself inherently has merit if it's done right, which is often not the case. But you've got the superintendent giving them the time, you get a lot of teachers voluntarily becoming involved with it, and that became apparent very soon. And then I start saying, well, maybe this is one of the rare things that has legs. And then the momentum grew and grew, and the enthusiasm grew, and the plans came forward, and we started seeing the little formal descriptions and Minuteman 101 and whatever. And then we saw something even more unusual and extraordinary. And that's that the building, they're so confident and involved with this idea that they're taking this one shot at a new building and partly building it around the idea so it'll support the idea. Because that's another thing that happens to us a lot. They say, here's an idea you want us to implement. It's usually implemented in this environment with groups and round tables. Well, we don't have any of that stuff. You'll just take your room the way it is and implement it there. And of course, it's going to fail because that was part of it. But here, the building itself is being designed with this educational model in mind. And all these things, everybody being involved, the teachers becoming enthusiastic, the administration and being enthusiastic about it, taking a physical structure and spending money to configure it to make the idea work. It's something that you almost never, ever see. I went from being very skeptical to very enthusiastic. And whenever they say building project, I want you to think, not just the construction, but what they're doing here with changing to the Academy model, because they're like this. We're not just building a new building to not have it fall apart or be dangerous. We're building a building. We have this opportunity to build a building to actually match an educational model, which is an evolution, not a revolution, that they've already been doing here. A model that supports it. If you think back a year or two ago when we were thinking about all the possibilities, remember one was just renovating the building to comply with codes and make it safe. And that cost X million dollars. And then if you wanted to reconfigure the building to match the new model, that would be another 50%. It costs an extraordinary amount of money. But if we had the ability to create a new building, we could do it at a very reasonable price, and that's what they're doing here. So when they talk about the new project, it's the construction and the Academy model, and you have to watch both of them and keep in mind the extraordinary thing that's happening between the administration, the staff, and the teachers. Because I have never seen anything like this in my 18 years of being a teacher so far. This is the first time I've seen anything like this. So sorry for the length, but I want everybody to understand that too. Is that the end of the superintendent's report?
Yes, you finished it nicely.
Thank you.
I thought it was the superintendent.
Principal's report, George Clooney.
We sent 12 kids to the Skills USA competition, this year the national competition on St. Louis this year. Minuteman did the best in the state of Massachusetts, securing 3 gold medals. Just to give you a little perspective, Massachusetts as a state did very well. Blackstone Valley, which is double our size, took home 8 medals, but only 1 gold. And we took home the second highest medal total with 4, and 3 out of those 4 were gold. So our kids really did a fantastic job. to give you the highlights of it, Sean Guitar from Acton got a gold in related technical math, so they have to solve all kinds of problems that any tradesperson or any of the careers, even outside of his own comfort zone, might encounter. He was a bronze medalist last year, so he was determined to get the gold, and we're very proud of him that he set his intention and achieved it. Erin Noel also received the gold medal for employment application process, so these kids have to prepare a portfolio, a resume, and then they have to go through a mock interview in their career area. They have no idea what the questions are in advance. They're not allowed to be coached. They're not even allowed to be witnessed by anybody on their team. It really has that feel of being an interview. If you know Erin, you'll see her around here quite a bit to her on our team. Of course, is amazing. So gold medal for her. We had our community action project. 2 seniors, Brian Courtney and Colin Kelly. Brian's from West Roxbury and Colin is from Sudbury. They did a community project on how to inform the public about invasive species and what to do. The highlight with that is they were so good that they couldn't leave the room. They had to answer questions from other teams and other coaches who wanted to know, like, how did you prepare, and what do you do in class to get you ready for this? And it should be noted that environmental science always does a really good job, because they do have the kids do as part of their weekly instruction, a 5-minute board report, and this is where you really see the things. In fact, we had another team of kids who didn't know, but they did come in 8th place for their career pathways project in environmental. Our final winners were in web design. The 2 juniors, Adam Powell and Nathan Francis White, both from Arlington. They won bronze, and the trick is with the web design, the page designs, there's always some curveball that they throw at you. So it really kind of doesn't matter what you're preparing the page for us, what handicap they're going to give you. This year's handicap is designed for people who have disabilities, with that in mind. So this is, they're juniors, they got bronze. We're already talking about going back and getting the gold, so we did really well. Major Skills USA report.
So these gold means are the best in the United States of America,
Yes, this is nationals.
and they qualify for the international competition, Skills USA, which is every other year. And so we'll be coming back to you if they're able to go, because some of the graduating seniors may not have that in their schedule.
Where will it be?
I don't know where it is international.
Okay, that's what she actually.
A good year.
Oh, very good.
Exception. They're saying that we're a little school that could, based on our size compared to everyone else. Yeah, we're great.
Smallest school with the most gold medals.
Is that the end of the principal's report?
That is the end.
Thank you very much. Fort Spalding School Building Committee.
We received permits, and if I've said this before, forgive me, in Lincoln by the Planning Board and Conservation Commission for site preparation, site clearing, and the foundation. That includes obviously the height of the building, and then that was approved. We've submitted requests for steel installation, so that is being going forward as we speak. The Lincoln Planning Board also approved the town of Lincoln's request for emergency access coming off of Mill Street. That's been defined, and I believe the work's already been started on
Yes.
to have that. That's really for police and fire, not to bring down major vehicles. But if we ever, on this side of the campus, are unable to get to that building because of an issue, they want to be able to get in from the rear end. So that's important. As you're aware, the official groundbreaking, I think, was a huge success. We had, I don't know how many people there, but I think it was well into the hundreds of people that were there. The planning that went into it, I want to congratulate those people who did the planning. The presentations were brilliant, so that was good by our speakers. I was not a speaker, but they were very well done.
And
I
short.
think- And short, and I think it was very well received by those who were there. Just yesterday, we actually started our physical construction of the project. Trees are coming down. For those that heard me earlier, I know Ed's been out there filming it also. They have these 2 humongous machines out there the two of the most skilled people around, in my opinion, but in talking to people from Skanska, they said one of these guys is just incredible. And I just showed Alice the film. They were picking up trees this big, picking up out of the ground, cutting them up, laying them down. So gentle. Really gentle. And if it wasn't placed in the right place, he'd get up and move it a couple of inches with this piece of machinery.
It's a symphony.
What is it?
A symphony.
It is.
He's like a conductor.
Yeah, the guy is a conductor. He was terrific. I would assume that the trees will probably be down within the next couple of days. It's a 2-week process because then they bring up a chipper, and the chipper grinds up absolutely everything that's out there. There will be some pines that they'll probably take off for some boards, but that's going along well. And we start clearing and digging holes and moving forward. Today, we submitted our 60% construction documents. They're hand carried, I think, by Mary Ann Williams to the MSBA, and we are on budget for our construction project of $119 million. So we had 2 cost estimators. We spent a whole day with them. Then there was a subsequent meeting with them, and they came to agreement. So we're on target on that. And that completes my report. You're welcome to go out there.
There's a fence.
There's a fence. Gilbane is very strict about going out. You have to, be with proper clothing on and all that. So you probably won't be able to go on that part of it yet.
He just talked with me, and we'll have some organized tour times.
So we will have some arranged signs. But I think probably it makes sense to wait until we start doing foundation. But they're going. The team is very enthused, extremely enthused about what we're doing. They're outbidding the project. I think that's going as expected, well. We'll find out more tomorrow, actually.
I have one question for it. I know the answer to it, but I have to ask it. Is there anything in this project at this point that is not going as smoothly as you would like, or any performance of our major partners in this that you're satisfied?
No, it seems to be going extremely well. I am concerned, I think Ed is, a lot of us are concerned about being sufficiently under budget, so we can move on to do some other things. We don't know those numbers yet. I tell you, we're not over budget, but I think that's what we're working towards. And the entire team's working on that. That isn't just those of us sitting at this table. They want the work too, so they're
Yeah, maybe kind of related to that today. So if we don't have the funds available to do the facilities that we envision for this end of the campus, our reliance on public and private partnerships to complete those resources is going to be great. And towards that end, I met with Senator Jamie Eldridge today in his office and talked about our intentions and how we would benefit greatly from having some skids greased when it comes to developing public-private partnerships. And Kevin and I have been meeting, we told you periodically about updates to our discussions with Goldstein and Stores, a legal firm that is specialized in public-private partnerships. And that we would have to have some special legislation filed on behalf of the district. I explained that to him very specifically. And my intention over the next year as we work on developing the superintendent's goals, I think it's going to be more present in our legislative team in regards to some of these issues, because it's only 2 years out. It's really only about 12 months out, and we have to start planning for these facilities. So any special legislation, which we have to bring to the school committee to discuss it, probably in executive session, and then ask for it to be filed on our behalf. That's probably going to be on our agendas in fall.
But it sounds like you are contemplating legislation that would be very specific to, you know, something that would be for all.
Yes.
for all those.
My question is, excuse me, I grabbed the voice of the work that was done to get the project through planning board and natural resources and all of that was in the time frame. Amazing. What is the plan or the mechanism for ongoing interaction with the with the building department, with the Lincoln Building Department for oversight or for?
We have an ongoing discussion with them. They have hired consultants. We're paying for it. They're hiring consultants. The town of Lincoln, they are, I think dedicated might be the word that's a good word to see our project done. They do not want to be impediment to our project. They want it to get done, so, and I think by having them hire consultants, which is nice because the consultants know as much as we do, whereas they don't know. But the problem is it's a money issue, in part, and I think that's an issue that we will have to address.
And part of our statement of conditions at Lexington and Lincoln require monthly reports. So we'll be very much time in the head.
It's just way beyond the scale of most of what
They have no idea.
town has to
There's
do.
no way- And we're a controlled project, you know, so we have a lot of people out there. It's not just the town of Lincoln and Lexington looking at it. Each of our members of our team, they have consultants looking at it. There's so many people looking at this thing. You know, a lot of towns, I don't know about your town, but a lot of towns waive fees and they just don't even participate. But that's not the case with Lincoln, and you know, they pulled out of the district. I think that's an issue on skirting around rock, but I think we have to do it.
Concord's building department dealt with the recent construction of Concord Carlisle High School without charging a fee, which would have just been too much of a town.
Dover did the same thing in the Dover Sherburne project, we didn't charge any. But there are two towns, Dover's more than that, but we were 16.
Alice?
And we were 2.
So I missed the last building meeting, just to be clear, so, are we still a year ahead?
Yep.
So, part of being a year ahead was to be ahead of the budget, right?
Yep.
So, that's not where we are.
You know, it's too early.
No.
It's really too early. You know, if you think about it, we bid the concrete, we bid, you know, we bid the,
Greenhouses.
we built the people were out there building, but we haven't built steel, we haven't built the construction, we haven't built, all the big ticket items have not been bid yet.
We'll
Okay,
know by Thanksgiving.
so the other question I have is about Goldstein Stores. I missed the report about that, I don't recall hearing about that at all. So, just tell us more about that.
What we've been consulting with them about is how to properly understand and procure public-private partnership. They wrote us, I guess I would call it an executive summary of how the district would proceed in the process of identifying potential partners and soliciting ideas and proposals, and then if we wanted to move forward with other projects. This is
What would be the basis, you said possibly an executive session, and I can certainly see when you have contract negotiation in executive session to discuss. But what would be the basis for executive session, talking about the legislation that might lead to the same, to negotiate?
there's probably a couple of real estate transactions primarily.
can't do it.
Yeah,
And thinking that, you were thinking that you would want to proceed with the notion of the special legislation and public-private partnerships, even if, you know, Ford and building committee brought this project in way under budget, we would still want to have
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So there's-
I can see that as an advantage.
And just a comment on that, I don't know how complicated the legislative process is. You're thinking of it, just
so
sort
not
of,
complicated.
okay, because the time
Right.
of next year, if you're looking for, if you're looking for public commitments, the best time to ask is when people are saying it's on the ballot. Next fall.
Yes.
And so if you miss that window.
Is there, this is for a question for Ed, is there a precedent for this?
Precedent, yes,
Yeah.
many. They gave us many examples of public-private partnerships in Massachusetts that they've helped broker, I guess is the word. And maybe this will remind you, Allison, because I've said there are two criteria for any partnership. One is that partners have to be mission compatible, and two, campus centric. In other words, they have to be part of workforce development, education, K through life, as being mission compatible. Campus centric means that they want to be here with us and with the other partners. There may be many, there may be none, who knows, but they want to work with each other on this campus. I'm not interested in slicing off a piece of this very valuable land and putting another little Cranberry Hill on it. That's not what I think we want to be doing. So, but the process for getting to that end is the same. That's what I understand.
Thank you.
I believe we have a vote for it.
Excuse me, yes. Town of Lancaster has recommended that they reappoint their town administrator, Orlando Pacheco, to be on the building committee. As Alice well knows, we know Orlando very well because he was around in the very beginning of what we were going through, I think, from the town of Bolton. Always Lancaster. And so he's back there. As I recall, it's been probably 5 years since I've seen him. He's a wonderful, delightful person. So it's going to be nice to have him on the team. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the town of Lancaster's Board of Selectmen to appoint town administrator Orlando Pacheco as a member of the school building committee.
Discussion? Seeing none, bring it to the vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Is that the end of the school building?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Assistant Superintendent's Report, Kevin Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 28, pages 28, 29, and 30 of your packet, you'll find a memo and a couple of schedules that provide detail on amendments to the approved FY18 budget. As we talked about last month, and the sessions with the Finance Subcommittee, our projections in terms of prior year tuition at the time we adopted the budget were optimistic. We needed to make some adjustments to the budget in line. So we're recommending a number of adjustments on the revenue and as well as on the expenditure side to bring the budget in balance. It's a reduction of an additional $449,000 from the budget that was voted in January. Just briefly, because of what we're seeing in the prior year tuition, we've amended our revenue forecast, decreased that number down to $3.4 million, which is a decrease of about $541,000. We're also applying about an additional $95,000 ED that was certified this year. On the expenditure side, we're looking to reduce 2.5 positions that we're able to identify as we get closer to the end of the school year. And we also rolled out some administrative reorganization that saved an additional $15,000. Then there's about 200,000 worth of miscellaneous line items based on different strategies in terms of, in some cases, reducing some of our commitment to some of the areas of our professional development. In advertising, we've also made some purchases in fiscal 17 to avoid those costs in fiscal 18. And we're also applying some of the funds through grants to enable us to reduce some of our line items. Given the project, we don't have the need for some of the field maintenance costs and obligations in that type of thing. So the total reduction, as I said, is about $449,000. If you look on page 30, you'll see what the estimated revenue plan will be compared to fiscal 17. And it's a reduction of a total of $728,000, which is about 3.7% from fiscal 17. These adjustments do not impact member town assessments. We were able to make it up all using resources that were initially voted on impacting assessments. So the assessments still remain at about 5.6% increase. And it amends the budget from 449,466 to 18,999,407.
Two questions. First question is, when you say 2/3, it means 2/3 of all members, which would mean 7 members regardless of percentages. Is that correct?
Correct.
Second, the vote is only the simple vote at the bottom of page 28. It does not include the schedules. All the vote is for the total amount of the budget. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Would somebody like to make the motion on the bottom of page 28?
The motion to amend FY18 budget from 19,449,466 to a revised total budget amount of 18,999,479 as presented by the budget.
Second first. Second. Question.
I saw my town sent me that the cherry sheets had come out, and I wanted to know if there had been any impact to the school from those.
No.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the new figure of 3.38 million for the fiscal year, 18 prior year tuition, that drains out that.
That's correct.
And just when you look in your crystal ball, do you think that the fiscal year 19 is going to come in at some number? Is this what the new normal is?
I think we're starting to see some of those tuition accounts start to slowly decline over the next couple of years. We have a 3-year model, we provided for that, with an expectation that our in-district enrollment will grow. So, yeah, we are looking at downward trends on tuition.
But, I mean, I guess the other way of saying is, do you think we're as stressed now? Do you think we'll be more stressed next year than we are?
Well, we're continuing to look at the benchmark that we established when we initially submitted our operating budget to MSBA, to try and get the budget down for it. I think we're continuing to make those efforts. We certainly anticipate that when we move into the new building, we may see some operating efficiencies, particularly in terms of our utility costs and things of that nature, maintenance and repair costs. So I think that we'll have some challenges, don't get me wrong, but I do think that these are planned, and we just need to continue to manage them as we have over the last couple of years. If we have to reduce some of that facilities, we'll see this.
Any further questions for the motion on the table? Very well, then all in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item B, disposal of surplus property. a list of surplus property we provided, which you're at the table this evening. For your vote, I would note that there were also 3 vehicles that were listed. These were corporate donations. We're required to destroy those vehicles if they were corporate donations. We can take evidence of that and keep it in the file for the record. For a vote of the school committee to declare the items presented as surplus.
Do I have a motion to
So,
so moved? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, very well, then bring it to the vote. All in favor of the motion on the table, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, unanimous. Thank you very much. Good results.
Item C, good results. There's a memo placed at your on the table as well this evening to inform the committee of my intention to award a contract for financial advisory services. We issued a request for proposal for financial advisory services. There's a slight difference when you issue a so-called RFP versus an invitation to bid that you commonly hear me report about. When you issue a request for proposal, you're defining the scope of work that you'd like to have done. You're defining the criteria by which that proposal will be evaluated. And the proposals need to come in 2 separate envelopes. One is in a non-price proposal and one in a price proposal. Whereas an invitation for bid is, you put the bid out, they respond, and they respond with their qualifications and a bottom line bid amount, and the lowest qualified bidder gets the prize. It's not the case with an RFP because you're basing the award on the technical qualifications of the firm that respond. After you go through that technical qualification based on the criteria that you set, you then open up the price proposals of only those that qualify technically, and then you make the decision. We do receive 2 firms, First Southwest and Unibank Fiscal Advisory Services. Both of these firms are outstanding. They have many years of experience in the Massachusetts municipal marketplace. Unibank, they sound familiar to members of the committee because they were the folks that assisted us. We engaged them to work on the facility study phase of the project. But once we moved on to the construction phase, it required us to issue the RFP. I've worked with both firms, and they're both very strong, and all of the referrals and references that I checked on and so forth. After going through that and deeming both firms qualified, we then opened up the price proposals, and based upon our scheduled debt, we see that First Southwest is estimating a cost of $186,000, Unibank Fiscal Advisors $140,000. So my intention is Chief Procurement Officer to award the contract to Unibank Fiscal Advisors. No vote is required on this. Have any questions?
You're happy with this result?
I'm very happy with it, and again, I could have gone either way. Yeah, they've been outstanding for us from the feasibility study. All of those models that we worked on, the tax rate impacts, and the debt schedules were all produced with the assistance of the And those folks will be in making presentations to the school committee, so as the school building committee, we start to strategize some of
Some budget transfers?
Are there other costs that we don't see here that are factored into it?
Not necessarily to factor into it, but you'll note on the attached schedule is continuing disclosures, audit confirmations, annual filings that need to be done, but those costs are sort of minimal in the grand scheme of things and provided by both are comparable fees.
Is there any sort of agreement that we keep the funds after we raise them with them?
No, that's, no, what they're doing is they're providing us the advisory services, and they're providing us access to the marketplace, and guiding us through the official statement process.
Advisory.
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to inform you, the committee, that I included items D, E, and F as sort of placeholders in case we needed those. As it turns out, I will not be requesting any action on those.
Is that good or bad thing?
That's good.
Good. Yes.
Good question.
Subcommittee report, superintendent negotiation evaluation subcommittee, David Horton.
If you look at page 33 of the agenda packet, it shows amendment A, under which we're operating to consider whether or not we will award a raise to, recommend a raise to superintendent. I can make a shot on that. The other two, you may recall, the other two members of the committee are Jennifer and also Dave O'Connor, who are not here. Jennifer is in Europe, and I'm not sure where Dave is not here. But we met and looking at reviewing the evaluation of the superintendent by the school committee, the comments made and the ratings filled out by people. We recommended that, we are recommending a 2% increase from the superintendent's FY fiscal year 17 salary to increase his salary by $3,864 for FY 18. And that's the maximum that we were allowed to recommend based on amendment A that we voted on last year. We also just further wanted to mention that as far as the evaluation system or process is that the superintendent continue the practice of identifying in school committee agendas the goals to which updates and progress reports are related. We're very happy, really liked, and appreciated, and we heard from other people too, that the superintendent's executive summary of the progress toward goals that we received just prior to filling out our evaluation was very helpful. We'd like to see that continue too. And one other thing that we recommend that the superintendent present a draft of his fiscal 18 goals to the school committee at its meeting on September 19th, on its first meeting on September 19th, so we can get the whole process going as quickly as possible. It's not possible to do that for the July meeting because we haven't voted, the school committee not voted on a budget salary increase, but we did, that's a recommendation that we are making, that the school committee have a draft of the FY goal, his goals, your goals, at the first meeting in September. That's really all that I wanted to say. But we did review the comments, and the ratings were essentially saying the goals have been met or exceeded. There were certainly some outliers we either no comment or didn't agree with. The majority of ratings where the goals were met or exceeded, and we felt based on the quality of the work that the superintendent has done this year, and the range of the work that he's done, that there's no question that he qualifies for the full increase that we can award him. So I move consistent with Amendment A of his, meaning the superintendent's contract dated 12/13/16, to approve the recommendation of the superintendent's negotiation and evaluation subcommittee, SNMES, to increase the superintendent's salary by 2% for FY18, representing an increase of $3,864 for a total salary of $197,066.
Second.
Questions? Comments?
Comment one. And his comment about considering writing the comments, doing the rating, the ratings and the evaluation process, and then reading the comments and looking at the ratings that other people gave on the same element. And what you were talking about, the met or exceeded, I often found myself sort of on the line. It was met, and it took a whole lot more effort and quality of work than one might have expected, or the deadline, the completion date wasn't really near, so I couldn't really say it was met, but the standard of performance was extremely high. Going out of the way to take the longer road, when we talk about this with the academy, bringing more people into the process so that ultimately there's a wider buy-in. That's the kind of thing that I really was focusing on when I was doing it, and I'm very impressed. It's been a good year.
It's been a good year.
No comments, bring it to a vote.
All in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Is that the end of the SNES report?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Alice Blue, Special Policy Task Force.
Okay, on page 35. We have a number of votes to take. I want to ask if maybe is there making a single motion to cover all of these policies at once? Seeing that there were no comments made to me. Did you get any comments? No. These are all policies that were gone over with you when I was away by Kevin. If you would consider that.
The chair will allow a single vote to cover items 1 through 8 under policies for second reading. Is that the motion?
That is my motion.
Go to second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion to table? Passes unanimously. I have a lot of things.
That was the
I can
Yeah, but you still have item 10.
I can feel the pain in the
MASC policy review.
Yes, so the next item here is, you guys all get the MASC policy newsletter. You read every word of it? I did. And I annoyed Liz and Jeff with email about it. Well, we need to do the housekeeping that they suggest, otherwise we'll eventually, in about 5 minutes, have all outdated policies again. So, this is a vote to authorize the policy task force to review the policies included in the MASC policy manual 2017 and make the recommended housekeeping changes and bring any that are controversial to the school committee for consideration. So, if anybody wants to make that motion.
So moved.
Discussion.
By housekeeping, you mean?
They want me to change one word. Nothing that is substantive.
So language or references to laws?
Yeah, I would say so. And I would say, we would bulk up the packet with copies of all the ones for the other housekeeping changes, and I would want to.
It seems to sort of give as much flexibility here, if we don't like what is made, we want to change it.
I personally would have gone through and issued both with 3 for like 6 years.
We did that once.
We did that before, and it took a year and a half to get the policy, so
the policy when you updated, but that was because they were from the eighties.
Actually, 4 years, because we tried unsuccessfully for 3 years until we took over the project.
That's right. But anyway, and we hired a consultant.
And you badgered Ed.
And we got Liz, and there were lots of things.
You
But
got me
anyway,
away from it.
and that was also true. So, this would be a housekeeping changes, you would see them all, and any that people would like to banter about. That's a proposal.
So it's been moved and seconded, correct?
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion to table? All in favor? Passes unanimously. And is that the end of the special policy task force? And it is, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yep.
Secretary's report, Dave Gordon.
I move we approve the draft minutes of June 13th, 2017 as presented.
A second.
Second.
I did not receive any comments from anyone. Liz, I don't think you need one.
All in favor of the motion to table, please raise your hand. You were asking. So you were asking, so one more time, hands up. 6 in favor, abstentions. It's Acton and Stowe.
So 6.
6 in favor, 2 abstentions. Okay. Item 10, now you'll notice that there's no time for the start of item 11. Liz, you were very wise. We're way ahead of schedule, so I could talk for hours.
No,
It's
Jeff, can I say something before you say anything?
Certainly.
The only thing I left out of my report is I really want to remind you to watch the building committee website. It changes a lot. We put all kinds of announcements in there of things that are going on, mainly for our constituent neighbors. But that's just interesting, and there will be updates, I hope, twice a week or so. You're taking pictures, you have some comments, so you will be able to watch what's going on. So I just really want to remind you, keep an eye on that.
So I have 3 comments, 3 areas of comments. One is what I call think about every week, and that's based upon a response to some emails I've gotten from the membership. The second is about the need to be involved, and the third is a few thank yous that I'd like to give. So think about every week is the stuff as an officer and as a member I think about every week on the school. And again, this is, I'm making these comments in response to some emails I get. So these are the things that whenever I see Ed or Kevin or anybody else in the school, I ask a question about these things or I'm thinking about it. And they're all equally important. The first one is the normal stuff that we need to do to run the school. Sometimes when we're working the more exciting things, we may not pay enough attention to those details. So it's kind of a reminder to everybody that we have to do the regular business of the school on an ongoing basis. And to that, the most important thing is the financial oversight. Although our financial oversight is in very good shape now, and I'll give a couple more comments on that in a minute, it's an ongoing task to make sure that we never give up all the ground we've gained. Very, very painful over a period of 6 years. The next thing is, as school committee members, one of our jobs is to try to identify the people who are really doing the work and ensure that whatever distractions do come up, they are protected from the distractions that prevent them from doing their job as much as possible. And I expect many fewer distractions coming up in the future than has been in the past. But there have been some weeks or some months in which Ed or the staff or even for the building committee has been spending hours and hours on things that don't have much merit and distracting them from doing real important work. And one thing that we should do as school committee, especially the ones who are going to be officers, is as much as possible to creating an environment in which the people doing the work get a focus on what's important. The next thing I think about every time I see them is, of course, the building project. And I think I said earlier, and I'll emphasize it one last time, building project means both the construction and what the academy model is going to be as they work together. So we need to hear, even though we have, I think, I think we have higher caliber than average people working on this. We have a lot of eyes on it. It is still also our duty to remain involved in an appropriate way without micromanagement, both in oversight of the building, of course, and what's happening here by asking the questions, even if we think we know the answers, and also ensuring that we hear from the teachers a lot about their work, because the building and the academy model go together. They either work together or they won't work together. So the academy model is essential to the success of the product we're doing. The next issue, of course, is enrollment, which is an ongoing important issue, but no more important than the other issues. Nevertheless, as time goes on, there are a lot of things we can do for enrollment. Some things are just going to happen as the new building comes online. Other things we have to figure out what to do. We have a workforce discussing it. We have ideas coming from the membership. Sure, ideas from the superintendent. We can grow enrollment within the district. It's always great. We can look for another partner, which will probably be easier as we get closer to being full and the project closer to being finished. We don't want to drop the ball on it, but we don't want to excessively focus on it and lose focus on the other important things. And the final thing that I know I have annoyed the superintendent with every time I see him, we've also discussed today, is the campus opportunities. Is the opportunities of what can we do to leverage the rest of the campus for the learning experience of our students, and for the perhaps financial benefit of the school and some benefit to perhaps some of our community members. So all these things go through my mind every time I see them. I always ask questions about it. It doesn't have to come up on every school committee meeting, but I think about it every time we're walking the door together. And I just wanted to say that is, I think, what I will continue to do in the future as a member and an officer. That's number one. Number two, as you'll see, we have fewer people at the table here. And that's, there's some benefits to that and some disadvantages. One of the benefits is, of course, it's easier to come to a consensus on issues. It's easier to get a quorum. A disadvantage is that there are fewer people to do the work that's needed to keep the school community running. And that means that all of us have to remain very much involved. You can be involved by being a regular member who's really contributing. You can be on one of the subcommittees. You can come and be an officer. Now, the last time I was giving up the gavel, I said a lot of very strong things about how challenging it was to be an officer of this school. There were some months, used to be, that it would take 40 hours of time in order to do this job. That's not true anymore. Not every month is smooth, but for most months, the worst part of this, of being an officer right now, at least for me, is driving up Route 128. That's quite a change in spending 20 or 30 hours talking to lawyers about ridiculous issues. So what I'm saying is that the concerns I said last time about the workload and the unpleasantness of being an officer are no longer true. And that if you are not contemplating it for this round, certainly by next year, everybody should consider what else they could contribute to the committee and, step up to some kind of leadership position. It's we're going to need everybody, and it's not so unpleasant. The only comment I will make is that you have to always remember it's about the kids and not you. So every time I make a decision as an officer on the school committee, I'm always thinking, how is this going to affect, this vote going to affect the kids and nothing else? I don't care about, I don't think that often about what the selectmen in Needham are going to say. I don't think about what people would like me or not. I'm just going to say, how in the long run is this going to impact the kids? And that's the only qualification for taking a leadership position in the school. in my opinion. Okay. Finally, I have a few thank yous, and these are long overdue. And I'd like to say them. I've said a lot of them in private, but I'd like to say them publicly, and then I'm going to be done. Obviously, for the staff and the teachers, they're not here because it's the off season, but send my thank yous to them for the Academy model, for all the support and all the fabulous work they've done in support of this project and the school over the years. A few specific thank yous. I want to thank specifically Ford and Alice, and not so much for the work on the policies or currently the school building committee. I'm going to go back to time a little further than that. The very start of the MSBA project, when there were a lot of complicated deadlines to meet, and we were getting a lot of resistance from some of the community leaders and from some members of the school committee, which were doing all sorts of, in my opinion, outrageous things to stop the project, by insulting, by making people look bad, by doing anything that they could. And yet what they did at the beginning of this, going way back when, is they set a tone of professionalism. A tone of professionalism, making all the deadlines. Obviously other people were involved, just like the superintendent of the administration, but I'm just talking about these two people. Making the deadlines, creating documents that were a professional or professional status, making sure that things were done on time. And the reason that's so important is that the MSBA ended up liking us quite a bit. And one of the reasons was the professionalism and the attitude, and that was created by these two individuals here, despite all the chaos that was happening. They just, might have been painful, might have been unpleasant, but they blocked it out, and they just kept doing one thing after another after another. And that set our tone with the MSBA. That was the foundation. And eventually it got easier as more people came on board, but I know how hard it was at first. I'm not going to talk about any specific incidents. Okay? But I know how hard it was, and without that foundation, we would not be here. In a similar vein, I want to talk briefly about Kevin Mahoney. Because a number of years ago, when I'm now going back a decade, when I'm saying I think that this place is going to eventually need a building project, but I cannot bring it forward because the financial oversight of this organization is not transparent enough. I'd be laughed out of meetings. And we are so far behind, there's nothing untoward, we're just very far behind the time, and very far away from where I would feel comfortable going to meetings and saying, these people are responsible enough, proven to have this $100 million or whatever project is. We were a million miles away. And Kevin stepped in, and there are two things that he has succeeded in doing over the years. The first one was with a lot of help from the staff, the school committee, and the superintendent being brave enough basically to say, I don't care what stones you turn over, improve what we're doing, and we're going to give you the best computer system out there. We're going to get you the toughest auditors out there. All decisions that were made by the superintendent, bringing Kevin on board. And he brought us from the Stone Age into the modern era in about 5 years, which was like a miracle to me. I said, this is never going to happen unless we can do that. So that's the first thing he brought in. The second thing he brought in was a credibility. You see, with Kevin here, it would be very hard for anybody in all the other communities to say, well, I don't really quite trust the stuff I'm getting from Minuteman because of the people in charge of finance. Well, as soon as Kevin was here, that kind of conversation ended because it would not have been credible because of his reputation, integrity, and the way that he conducts himself as a professional man. So those were two problems that I took from my list of impossible things we had to do, scratch out. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Again, the foundation of how we got to where we were. Okay. And another one I want to mention is Liz. Liz, who certainly has kept me sane during my return as officer and as chair, who has ensured that a lot of important details were not lost in the shuffle. She found them, she badgered whoever needed to be badgered in her incredibly pleasant way. She's very good at it. Very good at it. She's badgered me earlier today, appropriately. And the thing is that when you're spending 40 hours a month dealing with BS, and you have to rely on the fact that the other work is being done properly and with Liz in place, didn't have to give it a second thought. So that's the only reason why I decided to run an officer, because Liz was here. I've said that several times. Then I'd like to thank Ed, and those of you who have been here less than 9 years, or 10 years, which is don't know what the situation of the school was before Ed came.
But look from the outside.
You know what it looked like from the outside, but you did not know the status of the financial oversight and the effectiveness of the administration at that point. And you also did not see the stuff that Ed had to go through and put up with in order to change that, including hate mail, horrible comments made about him, accusations, obstacles, stuff that most people would have just said, I can't deal with this anymore, I'm going to leave, which is what I expected to happen. But he took it. He dealt with a lot of these distractions, and yet he still managed to get his job done. And as Ford has said on several occasions, once again, there would be no project without a person who loved the school enough, who was stubborn enough, who had a goal, and was willing to put up with the amount of BS that no human being should be able to put up with now. We haven't seen as much of that over the last few years, but going back to the beginning when we first came here, it was quite extraordinary. I'm very grateful that you were willing to stay. I thank you very much for that. There would not be no project without you, I'm sure. That's what it said. Next, I'd like to thank David Horton and Carrie so much for making being an officer the last few years so pleasant and fun. In contrast to some previous years, and knowing that there's always people to do the work that needs to be done that you can rely on, which is not something that we see everywhere in every job in the world, and it's really a delight working with you. I want to thank you very much for that. And finally, I want to thank all the members of the school committee who, especially over the last year, have worked so hard to make this project work and has shown courage. And it did require courage sometimes to say, we're going to go forward with this impossible project and we're going to get support in our communities, we're going to keep at it. And in some communities, it was pretty easy. Everybody was agreeable. In other communities, it was a bit of a fight that you had to keep fighting. And I also, on behalf of myself and the officers, want to thank you for all your support over the last few years. Some very difficult things, I greatly appreciate it. That's the only reason why we're here, is because the support by the people at this table, and even the ones who aren't here today, to get through all the challenges with, say, other people, I won't mention any names, some unpleasantness in the community, and the support that was palpable support and the votes and the comments was what kept us going through all this time, which we are very fortunate time. And with that, I'm all done. And we're still on the early side. And I'm going to ask you for one last vote, at least for me. And I would like somebody to move for the superintendent, this is the exact word, to allow the superintendent to preside temporarily for the selection of the new chair.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion on the table passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your comments and your service.
Want the-
Yeah. So this process, if you, in accord with the bylaws of the district, I now ask for nominations be opened for the position of chair for the 2017-18 year for the Minuteman Regional Education School District. Do I have any nominations for chair from membership? Yeah.
Anybody but me. I nominate David Horton for chair.
Second.
There's a second. Are there any other nominations for chair? Forward.
I'd like to nominate Sue Sheffield for chair.
Sue.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? As I have done in the past, I've asked each nominee if they're willing to serve in that position prior to closing nominations. Scheffler, are you willing to serve in that position you've been nominated?
It would be an honor for whoever wins this because, as Jeff was saying, in many ways the hard work is done. So the person who gets to take over the chair this year has an enormous amount of opportunity to work through it and move a lot of issues forward, work on enrollment, and it could be very exciting.
Thank you for that nomination speech. Mr. Horton, are you willing to serve, and do you have any other comments in regards to your service forthcoming?
I'm willing to serve if elected.
Yes.
I wondered if each of the people who are running would speak to what the issues that they feel are of great interest to the district.
That's an excellent question. Mr. Horton, would you like to respond first?
I think I feel the main issues focus around the building project itself and integrating it with the academy model, but also what we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about increasing the district enrollment so that we are on a firm financial basis going ahead. And the school, the school will, so that the school becomes all that we want it to become. But I think enrollment and increasing enrollment from district members and inviting people to other towns to join so that we have this robust student population coming from the member district. I think I also feel that communities are watching, will be concerned about the finances of the school. Will we be able to do all that we want to do without raising assessments to too high a degree or whatever that means. So I think money and what the school is going to look like and who's going to be part of the district and how many students from the member towns will be very important for us. I know I don't mean to imply at all that nothing's been done in that area or I'm worried about it, but it may continue to be focuses.
I also focused whatever role I play on enrollment, but enrollment almost is secondary to what I see as changing image of vocational education in our communities. There's a national move out there to become more cognizant of how important careers grew up with, that somehow vocational education was less important for the people who couldn't quite make it in academics or whatever. I mean, it's a very old model. I'm not very young. Since I've been here, that has changed radically. I think the whole idea of people being focused only on getting to college and the best one possible, that's eroding as a principle, and that's a good thing for the country and for us as a state. I think Minuteman, the image of Minuteman, I would like to see it become more in alignment with what Minuteman really does provide for student opportunities. And I think it's important to engage our communities in that. I've been talking to my student, Arlington District Superintendent, a little bit about this. I don't want to say conflict, but there's a lot of misunderstandings around what it means for someone to come here for our town financially. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go on, but it's enrollment, but as part of the bigger picture of making this kind of education, making people aware of just how great it can be at many levels.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We have 3 other questions.
4.
4. So, Mr. Wu, would you like to direct your question
Yep.
to the candidates through the chair?
Through the chair.
Me?
To Joy Roberts, to inquire of the candidates, whether they can represent the entire district, or whether they are the party and is representing their own community in the role.
So this gets to the fundamental paradox of being a school committee member. How do you represent Minuteman to your town, and how do you represent your town to Minuteman? Is that an adequate?
Yes, but specifically as chair, you give up your.
So how would you approach that as chair?
Allison, you're saying that you would give up representing your town as you serve as your
I would
deputy?
say pushing your own town's agenda is no longer your primary business if you were the chair of the school.
Well, I've always felt as a member of the committee that it was my responsibility to think of Minuteman as a total community, not just what it meant, just not what it means to Lexington, but also to, and I think that's been one of the issues with previous school committees, with some members did not see themselves as working for the greater good of Minuteman per se, or the students who are coming here. I don't think that I give up the chair gives up his or her role of representing, speaking about or sharing the views of what you hear in your community or from a community representative, but not to rubber stamp what they say and behave in such a way that that's what you're bringing to the school committee. I'm thinking of Sharon and Tia, who, from what I understand, did a lot of work in Lincoln, sort of rattling their cages to say, we should not be withdrawing, whatever. So I thought, I think Sharon voted accordingly. I think the chair should do that too. That you still represent, in a sense, you represent your town, but you're thinking of Minuteman as a greater community, and to behave that way, and to bring that back to the town that has appointed the chair, to let them know this is what, educate them as much as they may need to be educated about the worth and value of this education, and what we need for our students.
Sue?
I'm not sure I really see a lot of difference between what would be good for Arlington and what would be good for the district, since we're 40% of the district. Maybe I'm lacking imagination about this, but I just don't see how there could be a conflict. Certainly running the meetings is running the meetings, and I don't know how you can be biased doing that. And the vote, the way they vote is what it is. So you should tell me if I'm missing something. but at least right now, I can see, yeah.
Thank you. Ford, and Jim, and Karen.
I believe that we're at a stage now where advocacy for Minuteman and for career and technical education is something that this school committee needs to focus on very strongly. And that, if that is successful on behalf of the school committee, all the rest of the things I think are going to fall in place. So I'd be interested in a couple of your ideas on how you were going to help the school committee and help our communities through advocacy efforts on behalf of Minuteman and career and technical education.
Sue?
I have clearer ideas about how I could help as a school committee member from Arlington. I don't presume to know enough about the other communities to know how to coordinate communities, but what I'd like to do, or what I could imagine doing, is trying to pilot some things in my community, offering results here, and asking how we can help other communities. If there's different ways we could adapt whatever work in Arlington, advocating with my own town meeting members is really important. There has not been enough of that done, and I was there for the last couple of years, I didn't know enough of it. But certainly after the concerns, the challenges around getting the approval to build a new building, I would like to go back and really clarify why it is such a hard deal. There's a lot to be done there, it's publicizing, some of the awards and skills development and all that. Town publicity, regular newspapers and whatnot, staying before town meeting, doing reports for the finance committee in town, and I would like to do popular middle school. I know that Minuteman, of course, goes out to middle school, but I've had a lot of conversations with guidance counselors there. There's one fellow who's really good for this, and the other ones are close to what's going on. So, educate our guys.
Well, you may recall that we formed an ad hoc committee a couple of months ago that Pam was chairing, and the committee is asking itself, what can we as school committee members do to promote Minuteman, if you wish, in our communities? How can we as individual school committee members reach out and get the message out to our towns? We know that that Minuteman is making a great effort itself. What we would like to do is to support that effort, and also to hear from our own school committee members about what their particular towns need. If a particular town needs some more information from us, we could mobilize and organize to do that. Minuteman is already doing a great deal with print media through articles that Steve Sharp writes and other people write on the school's behalf. There's a great effort that's going on to have towns become aware of what we need here and what it can offer their students. So I think we need to hear from, as a chair, I want to hear from the members, from all of you, what you're hearing in your town, and what you think your town needs to hear from us as a group, collectively and individually. So I think it's all of it. I feel it's all of us working together as a school committee to respond to what we know about our communities, and to work with what's going on. The Minuteman staff is doing to recruit and to publicize and to let our towns know what the vocational technical education looks like, and the significance and importance of it.
Jim, you have a question?
Just first, I was not prepared for this. I think it's great. I just assumed that there would be one nominee, so I love this, and I thank you both, and I thank you both for working with both of you. I guess My question really has to do, I mean, we just approved the minutes from the last meeting, and on page 6924, it reads, the member from Belmont raised the issue of possibly establishing agreements with non-member towns. And I sort of did that in the context of, we've got member towns, we've got non-member towns, but then we've got these 6 towns that have left, and one more town that we've got, Watertown, that sends a lot of students, but it's not in. And in my way of thinking, you know, if we need to at least consider sort of a third category where it's a preferred non-member status that would also come with the obligation to pay the average cost of both on the operator and the capital. And so I think that would be a multi-year process, but I think it starts with at least agreeing to look forward towards sort of drafting what that kind of agreement would look like. And so I'm just sort of curious about whether either one of those sort of shares the sense that next year will be the right time to start to have that conversation.
I love a strong maybe. Well,
Sure,
yeah, that's helpful. I feel a lot of pressure to stay as focused as we possibly can on doing the best job we can in our towns right now. I'm not opposed to pursuing something like that, but for me to focus right now, given the new regional agreement, building, all that kind of stuff, member town, given that we don't have a particular staff, except for Liz, who goes to work 10 people, I agree, but I don't want to have to use her that way, so I would be careful about setting priorities. Certainly it's worth looking at and deciding where it might best fit on the priority list.
I think it's an interesting question that we certainly can take a look at, sort of vis-a-vis what the original agreement looks like, and also whether or not we really can do that. And I have to go back and look at the agreement. But we could talk about it with the superintendent to see what the administration feels, how the administration views pursuing something like that. I mean, I think any topic that comes up, we certainly can talk about. I don't have an opinion, a real opinion about whether, that's absolutely the best way to pursue something. But I certainly would put it on the table.
Thank you. Carrie?
Also not expecting you to have 2 candidates. So my question is, I'd like to hear from each of you, since you're both making good and strong points about what you might do or think was important to accomplish as chair. Is your interest or commitment in any way diminished if you aren't voted in as chair? And would you see yourself comfortable in one of the other officer roles or subcommittee chair? Because you can't both be chair, and we have to.
Yes, and this is the last question for the candidates. Sue, you may go. You need to ask me.
Did you watch the debates last year?
Only on Saturday Night Live.
What I'm interested in doing, I'd say them pursue better if Arlington is, I'm not sure. So I can pursue what I think is really important several different ways. I feel like
Thank you. David?
No, I feel totally committed to the school committee and Minutemen. I wouldn't go off and cry and say, don't come here and don't ask me to do anything if you're not going to vote for this chair. It's not the way I would behave at all. I'm fully committed to working for Minutemen in whatever capacity that I'm able to do. I think I did say in June that I would not seek the office of secretary if I were not for any unhappiness with that role or whatever, but I just think, I feel that it would be good to have new people join to become one of the officers. And one way, if I were not elected to chairmanship, that if I were to say serving as secretary, that would not bring new people I think we need some new people to think of the future of the school, and that's one way to do it. So I would not be interested in serving instead of running this type.
So as the moderator of this debate, which was not in the public, sounds like we have a nomination for vice chair.
Just to remind people, I believe that this is a long-awaited vote.
This is a normal, one person, one vote.
Is it one person, one vote, or?
I believe so. For the bylaws,
I haven't honestly
I can leave.
I did not.
what's that mean?
That's my computer talking to me. Does it have response?
I don't think this was one of these.
This is not
I don't
a
think this is.
ballot vote, it's an open vote. Although you can choose to have.
It's interesting, because I don't remember inception.
Can we vote for the town leader vote?
No. These are business.
Mr. Chair.
Yes?
So you're saying for this kind of vote, for this situation, you have to do a vote.
That's what the former chair is whispering in my ear. I thought it, she's looking it up.
I don't recall an exception of, I don't have a good memory anymore, but I recall this
I
as an
think the
exception.
only exceptions were budget and amendments to budget and amendments to.
So I think that these are weighted votes.
I think it's a little.
I've got the regional agreement, letter of public use.
What I have here, it looks like it's, manual vote, and got our top vote.
And there's an amendment to the agreement, I think, that other people and stuff.
The agreement is equal. Oh, actually, I do have a question. Sue and Dave, have either of you had any contact with Russian officials? Just wanted to make
The
sure.
former chair will be silent.
I'll send you my email string in the morning.
So do we have confirmation on the nature of this vote?
Yes,
What about don't we have bylaws about electing, we have bylaws about electing
Bylaws
officers.
are,
Do they prevail or do they
No.
take precedent?
The regional agreement.
With that?
but is the regional agreement silent for the election of officers? I
It
believe
is.
Well, it's, because it specifies certain
Yeah.
exceptions to the way of voting, everything else would be.
Yeah,
If
it's
it
silent.
didn't, if it didn't,
It doesn't mention it.
say you could do it. There's nothing, it's a way to go. For what it's worth.
So is the, yes,
The way to vote makes sense for national policy and budget and all that sort of stuff. That's the government. Exerting 25% of the vote for myself. I mean, that's, I'd much rather do the one-to-one vote. It's effective, it makes a lot of sense. See if the neighbors are in good mind.
if that's the will of the committee as a whole, to have an individual vote, you can make that motion, have that vote, we would check it out with council and make sure the vote is valid. If there was some adjustment to that vote, we can take it and inform the committee immediately. I mean, what's the sense of the meeting?
I think it should be a one-for-one vote.
This says, the agreement says, after describing the calculation for the value of the weighted vote, assuming that a quorum as defined in subsection 1.5 below is present, and except for a vote to approve the annual budget to incur debt or to approve an amendment to this agreement, a combined total of weighted votes amounting to over 50% of the weighted votes present shall constitute majority approval. Because it says, except for these three, it doesn't say, and maybe some others, it says except for these three. So I'm afraid it is,
Well, if
My-
she does feel
my-
that way,
on Attorney Brain says,
Can I just say that if the vote goes through that you're elected chair, I'm not going to age you.
Let me ask you another
Really?
question.
I understand that, I understand, but
she could unvote for herself. It would be her decision to,
right.
if it did not come out with the majority numbers. So that's the only way, but the law says the law says.
there are 83.6, we need 41.8, so it's almost exactly half, I mean, it's exactly half. You are more than half of what's needed to pass, but not, you're not more than half of the total vote.
Mr. Smallman?
Can we take a weighted vote as to how we're going to vote?
You know, the first new member community will trigger a rediscussion of
I hope so.
of the agreement.
Just go back to where it was.
Yes, sir.
Withdraw, right? I want to be the last vote. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's,
That's a brilliant way to get around our errors in that regional agreement. So, as chair, I'm asking for, I'm going to start with David. All those in favor of David Horton, raise their hand. Liz, are you counting that? What was the number?
Which ones? So, Dave,
Can you do it again, please?
yeah, David. Just a minute, because you're down here. Who's no? You're abstaining.
Sorry?
If you withdraw, then I think the vote is otherwise unanimous. How's that?
If she withdraws, we can all vote, and everybody can vote yes or abstain.
So
Wow.
that was a test vote, it wasn't a real vote?
No, was it? It
No,
was.
it was a
in
vote.
the-
In the process of the voting, the other candidate
Then
withdrew.
it's, then there's
So
no
now,
vote.
so
Then there's
now,
no vote.
so now, I'm asking for a vote of the committee for Dave Horton, the only candidate for chair. And the vote is unanimous. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. Just to move things along, I'll keep the nominations for vice chair. I'll open those. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Sue Shepherd.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I close nominations, and we'll turn it over to the new chair to call for a vote on the vice chair. Thank you. Change the regional agreement again? Then if I can. Oh,
Any questions for the nominee? Yeah,
I do have a question.
yeah. Alice?
Yes, so, are you interested in serving as the vice chair?
yes, because at least as I understand it from my previous meetings, this means that David is responsible for running meetings, things like that. And I get to be behind the scenes, bring up my issues, be supportive, all of the things I don't like, so I can do sort of the same job that I work on. Responsibility works for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. All in favor of Sue Scheffler as vice chair. Was it unanimous? I didn't see.
It was.
Unanimous. Congratulations. And I'm happy to work with you. Pardon me?
That's about being helpful.
No, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm very happy to work with you. Do I hear any nominations for secretary? Alice?
I'm nominating
Second. Unless they-
Jennifer Leone has said that she did not want to be nominated, that she needed a year off from serving on the Lancaster School Committee, so she would be asked not to be nominated. Are there any other nominations? Are you willing to serve if elected?
May I make a comment on that? The secretary can do the work any day of the week. I mean, once you're at the meeting, you can do the work any time of the day or the night, any day of the week, up until Liz says, where the hell are the minutes?
Well, I was gonna say, Liz has a lot of patience.
She's worked with me, believe me, she has a lot of patience.
I can explain, I can explain what the role, basically the major part of the role is to, as Liz gets the minutes out very quickly, is to review the minutes to see if there are, typos which are rare, clarify a few things, but I don't have to do a lot of so-called work on them, but that's the major thing I do, that the role that I do.
And attend the officers.
And attend officers' meetings, plan the agenda, or on the agenda. There are also, occasionally, there are papers that need to be signed, documents that need to be signed by the secretary, not too often. But,
Let me
yeah,
ask,
sorry.
who's responsible for keeping the official records?
Liz does
Okay,
that.
then
You
they're not doing the list.
Yeah, but she does the work. And I also, when, in my couple of years as secretary, I tried to read the minutes as they would be read by somebody who wasn't there. Does it really tell the story of what happened? Liz is very, very good at getting the summary down. She's a fantastic job. And sometimes it's just a word or two, or switching the phrase. That may be less important in the next few years. But that's important.
What I also do is I write down the votes that are taken in meetings, and sometimes they get a little hectic.
Yeah, especially, well, maybe won't happen as much going
Yeah.
forward, but lots of coming and going.
Some people coming and going.
Then,
So I've been keeping track of who comes late and who leaves early.
We check that between checks.
Yeah.
Now, the work of keeping the official records,
Not our responsibility. No, I wouldn't either. Liz takes the notes, Liz writes the minutes, and it just as Carrie says about seeing how it's worded and then anything that needs some clarification. But she does a great job. It's not an onerous job at all. Do I hear any other nominations? Any questions? Okay. All right, all in favor of Pam Griss?
So for the next meeting, you just move the camera over to that side.
Thank you, Pam, very much.
And congratulations to the editor.
Yeah, I look
We're
forward.
here to help you out.
I don't have an inaugural speech as Jeff had his farewell speech as George Washington. But I do want to note that the school committees have remarkable chair people in the person of Jeff, who was the chair when I came on the school committee in 2008, and Alice and Ford, incredible chair, the incredible work they did, having people whose hearts really were on the school and knew how to promote Minutemen's mission. So I feel really humbled and honored to be able to serve in that line of succession, if you will. It was really, the three of you were just remarkable. And I knew that, I knew that while you were working, not just now that time is over, that, yeah, they really were pretty good. They were damn good as we moved along. So thank you for setting a fine model for how the chair should behave at school committee meeting, run and work the act of school. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Just taking an opinion. That's loud.
We're meeting in August.
The most important part of the office.
So George, August 28th, okay.